Welcome to the Peace, Power, and Purpose podcast, where brotherhood, faith, and resilience collide. Here, real men share raw testimonies of battles seen and unseen, stories of struggle, redemption, and the strength found only in Christ. This is more than a podcast. Today, I'm joined by my friend Nicole. Nicole is the first female combat vet that I've had on the Peace, Power, and Purpose podcast. She's here to share her testimony. She's here to talk about her deployments in the Army and also to cover just some of the trials and tribulations that she's been through in her life. Nicole, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it. Yeah,
Thank you for
it's a
having me.
pleasure. And to all our viewers right now that are watching, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button on the channel so you won't miss an episode. New episodes drop every week on YouTube and on Spotify. Nicole, so let's kind of start from the beginning. Where did you grow up and what did your childhood look like?
I grew up in the Midwest. By Midwest, I mean
Okay.
Michigan and Indiana. Um, my dad raised me. I have three brothers. So from a very young age, I was out in the wilderness, off on my own, chasing adventure. I think a lot of that primed me for military service later on in my life and the adventures that we'll get into. But Um, we're also here to talk about trauma and faith. And I think one of the things that we forget to acknowledge is that a lot of the things that we carry, that we're dealing with later in our life start from a young age. Whether you had the perfect childhood or not a great childhood, in some way it was hard for all of us. So, what part of my story is that my parents divorced when I was young. My mom is the one that left. She not only left the family, she left the state. Um, my brother and I, and then my two half brothers, so they weren't even my dad's kids. He raised all four of us. We struggled financially our whole upbringing because he was trying to be an artist, support four kids. Eventually went and just got a corporate job. So there was a lot of time left to myself and my own devices. I'm a very creative person. There was a lot of shake it off and toughen up when I got hurt playing sports. Manners were a huge deal in my family because I was the only girl. So it was very much like, be a young lady, be a young lady. So even today, I overuse please and thank you. But I wouldn't trade it. I had a great, upbringing. It really prepared me for the things that I went through and prepared me well
So
for the
did you
military
did
service
you
I
have
was in.
family members that were in the military? What kind of drove you to join the military?
It was a really neat constellation of things happening at the same time. My younger brother kind of was struggling near the end of his high school career, got caught up in the wrong crowd. And I didn't know this story until recently, but my older brother and I went to him and we said, you need to turn your life around. You have five choices: Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, or prison. And I didn't recall that conversation until he said that not that long ago. So, anyway, he joined the Army out of the blue to us. He started as an E1, he's now an E8, 20-year career. Anyway, so that happened. I went to go see him graduate from basic training and see my little brother just become transformed into like this very polished soldier and a man. And I was so proud of him. Right around that time, I lived in Houston. So we went through Hurricane Katrina and Hurricane Rita, kind of back to back. And in both of those scenarios, Houston was impacted. And I saw the National Guard come and rescue people off the rooftops. And so I had this inspiration and this pride. And then I had this longing, like, I want to do that. And so I had a full-time job at the time, so I went down to a National Guard recruiter's office. We sat for hours looking through all of the marketing recruiting videos to figure out what was the right thing for me. I wasn't 18. I was
Yeah.
like 25, I think, at the time. Um, the day I was leaving for basic training, I found out I was pregnant with my son. That was something. I was married at the time. We were wanting to have
Mhm.
kids, just not quite right then. So that was a very jarring way to find out. So needless to say, I didn't get to go to training. That was a really kind of shame-filled day because there were a lot of like rumors about somebody is pregnant. And the gentleman who told me said, I don't know whether to tell you I'm sorry or congratulations. And it's just not really the way that you want to find out you're adding to your family. My recruiter picked me up. I called my husband from the car and said, "Hi, just kidding. I'm not going to training like we planned. I'm coming home because 'cause we're having a baby." And he said, "What?" So, gosh, that was
Yeah.
quite a life-changing moment, right? So, just unpacking everything that goes with I thought my life was on going one direction, and I had done a lot of training and preparation for that, and then all of a sudden turns on a dime. Not unlike going to a deployment and coming home from a deployment, right? So this is just, I guess, my own personal foreshadowing. But I just prayed into it, like, okay, okay, this is what is happening. Like, help me to have discernment about what I'm supposed to feel about this, how I'm supposed to lean into this. I just kind of rolled with it. By the time my son Carter was a year old, I could come back. So we had relocated to Tennessee, where we live now. So lots of life changes. Military, no military. Baby, moved across the country, and now he's a year old, and I just was determined to get back to the path that I had embarked on before. So when he was a little over a year old, I
Okay.
joined
Okay.
again, this time in Tennessee.
Okay.
Same job, public affairs, which means I was a photojournalist as a photographer and a writer, and I also was kind of like media relations, the liaison between media and military. Um, I was away at school and basic training in school for about 10 months out of that first year. As I was at my journalism school, soldiers were coming to pick up their new members of their units saying, "Welcome, we're deploying. Get ready. Like we're deploying next week, we're deploying next month." So I knew that was very likely to happen to me. So at first you're kind of scared. I just wanted to that wasn't off the table. I just wanted to serve. So I wrapped my mind around that real quick because as soon as I got to my unit in September of that year, they said, "Hey, welcome to the unit. We're
Was this
deploying
was
in
this guard
April."
or was this active duty? Okay, so
This was National Guard. So one of the, I think, misnomers about the National Guard is for me and for a lot of Guard soldiers, there's really no one weekend a month about it. So I was in a 20-man unit. There are only 800 of us in the whole army that
wow.
do the job that I did. So we were able to deploy all the time. And I was deployed all the time
Yeah.
because I loved it. So there were always opportunities to go to schools and go to training and attach to other units who were deploying. So I was National Guard, but I did it almost full time
So
for my whole
Tennessee
6
National
years I
Guard.
was in.
What part of Tennessee?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay.
Nashville, the Nashville
We
area.
probably have some people we know in common.
Yep.
Yeah, it is,
Probably
yeah.
so. It's a
My
small
dad was
world.
in the Tennessee Guard for a while, long time ago, but yeah, that's okay, cool. I didn't
Okay,
know that. That's cool.
okay.
Okay, so I wanna
Yeah.
ask you this real quick, Nicole. So you mentioned God earlier. Um, was God was he a prominent, source of direction in your life as a young adult, or did he kind of come into your life once you got that vision to join the army? Like where was God in your story in the beginning?
God was just a figure to me. So we were a family that
Okay.
went to church like on holidays. Like there was no religious upbringing in my family. So I had friends in Catholic school. It was around me, but I didn't have a relationship with God. I didn't have a lot of knowledge. When I was in college and young adult, I started to go to church on my own and really get involved. And that's when I found I had so many questions. I didn't grow up in a religious family, so I'm figuring this stuff out as an adult. And I just had a lot of questions. I feel like as a child, you just believe what you're told. And here I'm like, I need to, people couldn't answer my questions. My friends, my peers, when I'm asking them things about the Bible and God and Jesus and just this doesn't make sense to me, we're finding that some of these things just maybe don't have answers. So it just really was a confusing thing for me. So I've never been without believing God, but I was not connected to him or to a church until I went to basic training. On Sundays, you had a choice. You could go to church or you could spend all day cleaning. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go to church because how that can't be a bad thing. And so first Sunday that I went, they passed this brown cardboard box down the line, and I plucked out a Bible. It was a camouflage Bible. It was really well designed. It spoke to me because I was a designer at the time. That's what I did for my career. And in that Bible was a letter from a lady named Sarah Hewitt, and it was just like donating the Bible to me, praying over me. And she ended her letter with, take the word of God against you towards the enemy, because the word of God is sharper than the sharpest double-edged sword. It just really spoke directly to my heart because I was about to go to school to be a journalist, to be a writer. The pen
Yeah.
is mightier than the sword. So that's where it really started. And he showed up in a very visible way for me, like all throughout the next couple of stages of this military career that I had. And there were things that it's just like, I don't know how I got through this moment, or I missed a dangerous moment. I mean, I just was like, I had some major guardian
That's
angels
awesome,
watching over
especially
me, that's
to
for
get
sure.
that Bible in basic and have that letter from her like that. That's incredible. That you're the first person that shared a story like that. I was the guy that when we had the option to go to church on Sundays, I sat in the lobby and drank coffee and ate donuts. I didn't go into worship when I was in OCS. So that's really cool to hear somebody did that for you.
Well, you know what's funny too is I'm a big reader.
Hmm.
I mean, I have books all behind me. And we couldn't have any books at basic training. So
Yeah,
every night I had my little flashlight in my
nice.
bunk and I read the Bible. And I read it every night. And so towards the end of basic training, somebody was getting baptized. And so they came to me and they said, "Oh, would you read a
Wow.
scripture as we do this?" And I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know any scripture. Why are you asking me? And they said, "Oh, well, we see you every night when we're on fire watch. We see you reading the Bible." And so I just was like, wow, no, I don't know anything about it. And but isn't that neat, right? Like the view we have of ourselves is one thing. Like how could I do this? I'm nobody. I don't know anything. But from the outside looking in, people are like, but I see you reading this
Yeah.
Bible every night. You
Yeah.
must be really devout. You must
Yeah.
be the one we need to ask. So, I think that's just an important thing for all of us to remember too. What we're going through, whether it's good or whether it's bad, we are putting on a different persona. Other people experience us differently the way that we experience life. And I think sometimes it's important for us to like lean into, what am I portraying on the outside? How are other people seeing me? Like, I need to really believe that for myself right now so I can get through this
Well, and
hard
you were a
thing that I'm
leader
going
too.
through.
They probably looked up to you. That's why they ask you. And that's you're right though, because we do have kind of a maybe a different perception of what people think of us. And I need to focus more on that because I think people look up to us that we may not realize, especially when you have kids when they're young, they're watching everything you do. So
Yeah.
that's a good way to put that. I'm glad that you shared that. That's a great perspective. So you went to where'd
Yeah.
you go to basic at? Oh
I went to
wow.
Fort
Okay.
Sill, Oklahoma. So there were a lot of interesting things about being a woman in the armed services. So Fort Sill, I was the first cycle that had
Okay.
males and females together. So I didn't know that at the time, but just basic is kind of difficult. They're always yelling at you. I went in the middle of a snowstorm. It's cold. So they just kept freaking out about fraternization and battle buddies. I mean, they just really, really drilled that into our minds. So Fort Sill, Oklahoma Artillery Base, Geronimo is buried there with
Cool.
his horse. Fun fact. A lot of my drill sergeants were infantry and artillery guys, so they were, super soldiers. I feel like I got really very good training while I was there. Then I went to Fort Meade in Maryland, which is an amazing place. The NSA is housed there. So I one day went to a museum on the NSA property, and I'm a photographer, so I have my camera with me. And so then I get a police escort back. As I'm walking back with my huge camera, I get pulled over. I was walking, but I get pulled over, and he's freaking out, asking me, why do I have a camera on this property? And I said, well, but I'm a student, I'm a photographer. So he had to go through every single one of my
Yeah.
photos, hundreds of photos, had to go through every single one of my photos to make sure I wasn't capturing anything confidential. And then he drove me back to the barracks. Excuse me. And so that was a sight. I was like an honor graduate, and I'm getting dropped off by police escort back to the barracks. So that was
What year was
that
this?
was quite a time. This
Okay. Okay,
was
nice.
2010.
So you went
Yeah.
when did you actually join the Army? Oh 09? 2009? Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
'09.
Okay.
Completed my training in 2010. As soon as I got to my unit,
Okay.
we were supposed to go to Iraq. So,
Mhm.
wanted to train up for that. I was excited to
Yeah.
go to cover the close of the war because I just felt like, okay, well, what we're doing is going to
Right.
be captured in history books. 30 days before we left, our deployment got canceled. So that was like pulling
Yeah.
the rug right out from under you. And people probably can't understand that, but we put so much time and effort, and you wrap your mind into going and what it's going to be like to be gone for a year from your family. And you kind of get used to that. And then all of a sudden, yet again, right? It's like going to training and then whoops, you're having a baby. It's like we're going to Iraq. Whoops, you're going to stay home. And it's just like these two worlds are very different. They just you just can't flip the switch and go from one
So
to
I have
the
a
other
quick
just like
question.
that. So,
You're a young mom going
yeah.
to basic training. So can you talk about that for
Yeah.
a minute? Like what was that like, having a because your son would have been what, like I think he 1.5 when you joined, was that right? So what was that
He was
like
one and a
going
half.
into
Yeah.
basic and then having such a young child? Like I can't imagine the stress and just where was your mental health during that time with such a young child?
Um, well, I think my mental health was strained already just from being a young mom. So, um, I'm a mom. We've moved. My career had to change. I'm at home with my son for the first year of his life, which was definitely
Mhm.
a blessing, something I'm very grateful for, but it was very taxing. It was very hard. So, um, I needed to do something that was just for me, and it just happened to be the
Yeah.
army. Like, I could have gone on a hike, right?
Big
But
or go home.
but this was
Right,
something that I'd
right.
started before, right? So I just felt like I set out on this. I'm gonna do this. This is hard. His dad is great. They've got it. As soon as I get there, though, there was a lot of, oh my God, what have I done? What have I done? Like, there was a lot of, it was, I mean, it was hard. It was scary. There was no communication with home. I was really scared. I was really tired. I was really stressed. I felt a lot of guilt. But somewhere along the lines, I mean, you just start to build these relationships. You focus on this teamwork, and I had a choice to make. I could be stressed and scared about this, and the time would go by really, really slow, or I could get my head in the game and I could support my teammates and I could learn everything and I could get back home to my son. And so that's what I did. So he was never absent from anywhere that I was. I always had his pictures and his drawings, but it's like that was the motivational factor too. It's like I'm doing this
Mhm.
for him. I'm doing this to show him like this is what it's like to chase your dreams. I'm doing this to show him whether you're a man or a woman, like the boundaries, we only set those for ourselves. So it was just important to me that he also saw, even though he didn't understand at the time, that he saw me kind of chasing my
Yeah, that's
dreams
really
and
cool. I
doing
was just I
bold
was just
things.
curious, what that was like, and I think a lot of people that have kids, I have 2 kids of my own, there's still that drive in us as parents, like, we still wanna achieve our dreams and do what we wanna do in life, but it's great that you were able to
Yeah.
kinda still set that example for your son and show him, obviously, you're still in his life, but you're doing an extraordinary thing compared to maybe the average mom or dad out there that just kinda is doing a job they hate or not really achieving goals that they wanna achieve. So I commend you on that because it takes a lot of courage to step into something like that, especially as a young mom.
Yeah, it was just, I felt
Yeah.
called. I felt called to wear the uniform. When I didn't get a chance to do that, I still felt called. I felt called to deploy. And so, before we started this, we said a prayer just about please don't let anything get in the way of sharing the story. And I think there were so many times where, spiritual warfare or just life or just busyness was trying to put a hurdle in front of me. And I just was so focused on this is what I feel like in my heart. I got a lot of judgment, especially living in a state where a lot of women are stay-at-home moms and homeschool, and that is really a wonderful thing. It just wasn't natural to me, and it wasn't what I felt called to do. And it's not how I can serve this world, right? We all have gifts and talents, and so there were so many things about it that it's okay for men to do, but it's not really okay for women to do. So I had to wrestle a lot with, what am I doing? What am I thinking? Am I doing the right thing? But ultimately, yes, like God doesn't call us to things that are easy. He makes things just for us, and the world is better when we really lean into those and do
Said that's
what we're
awesome.
supposed to be
Yeah, that's
doing.
really cool. Well, kind of let's talk about your first deployment, because I'm assuming, I think you mentioned it before, you guys jocked up and then they got pulled. When did you get to deploy, and how old was your son at the time when you did your first deployment? Oh,
Within
okay,
days,
okay,
I was on another deployment,
okay.
and I was
Wow,
going to Afghanistan at this time. So that was an interesting turn of events. I'm so
you're
sorry
fine.
about this. Try throat. So the first phone call I made when I found out I was not going to Iraq was to my husband, and I was crying and I was very upset. And of all of the things he could have said, what he did say was, "That's all you ever talk about is this stupid deployment." And so I hung up the phone and I made some phone calls and I got on a deployment to Afghanistan like within the hour. And because I was just
Yeah.
ready, determined to go somewhere. So later that night, as we're taking our son to the park, I just we had done a lot of chasing his dreams and his goals, and that was the right thing for our family to do. You know, I didn't do that under with a twisted arm, but I felt like this was my thing. I felt like this was a calling, and I didn't feel supported by the person I should have been supported most. And like I said, of all the things he could have said, that's what he chose today. So later that night, I just said, I don't want to be married anymore. Um, and that surprised all of us. I didn't expect that to come out of my mouth, but I was being true to myself. So I went to Afghanistan. There were four of us from my unit who attached to another unit.
Okay.
So I'm a stranger
Yeah.
to 120 people. I'm going to war, and I have this war waging in my heart at the same time, and nobody knows. Not only do they not know, they have no idea who I am. They have
Mhm.
no idea what my story is. And I'm wrestling with that, right? So talk about the toughness of going through a deployment, but then dealing with this family situation,
Yeah.
dealing with the legal
Yeah.
situation, all the paperwork, all the things. It was a really tough emotional year. I did a lot of praying. I did a lot of praying into this. I started a journal called Talks with God because, well, I'm a writer, so I process things on paper. But I knew if I called it that, if I were writing letters to God, like I couldn't sugarcoat things. I couldn't hide anything. So I was able to get a lot of beautiful things out that way in the middle of a very dangerous, dark, hot, stinky place.
So God was really at the forefront, even kind of at that stage in your life. You're going through so much, but you still got your eyes on God. That's
I think that's when it really
mm,
became very real for me. That's when my relationship with God became not only a
okay.
relationship, but just rock solid. You know, I started to understand the things that I had been reading in the Bible about his love for us and the sacrifice and, you know, people who serve, man, that's the ultimate sacrifice. They're willing to give their life for their country and their family and their God. And so I was living what I was reading, and I got so many signs, so many confirmations that I was doing the right thing. That even though this was hard, this is where I was supposed to be. There was a purpose for me to
Was
be
there a
there.
verse in particular while you were in Afghanistan that kind of stood out to you, or kind of helped you more than other verses, or a book in the Bible? Hmm,
Oh yeah, I'm so glad you asked that. It was
nice,
Psalm 91. I
dude.
didn't know much about the Bible at this
I'm gonna blow
time.
your mind here when you get
That
finished.
was
Keep going. Sorry. Keep going.
okay. So when I was at basic training, somebody's gas mask had
Wow.
Psalm 23 written on it, and that's the though I
You
walk
just
through the
did it.
valley of
You
the
just
shadow of
said
death.
it. Yeah. Keep going. I'm gonna blow your mind in a second.
Yeah. So okay, so it was really
Yeah. Yeah.
scary over there, right? So I'm like, I need to pray. I need protection. I need So I was trying to find
Yeah.
some, I knew it was a
Yeah.
psalm and I knew it was two numbers, but I didn't know what numbers they were. So I'm looking through. I come across Psalm 91 and I just like drop to my knees and cry because it was so specific about the spiritual covering and you not being injured, like even,
Yeah.
though the lions are after you, like nothing will hurt
Yeah.
you, not even a stone. So I tore that out of my Bible. I carried it in my pocket, in my chest pocket every single day, everywhere I went, every single day. And I just really
Yeah.
feel like that carried me through. But the funny thing is I was looking for something totally different, and this is what I found, but it was more applicable
Yeah,
to
that's
me than anything
awesome.
else could
Well,
have
I'm gonna
been.
blow your mind real quick. So I started doing I've used a Bible app for years, and it's called YouVersion, and they have like a verse of the day and a devotional. So the past couple episodes I've been reading the verse of the day on air, and I'm gonna read it because you just said it. Today's verse of the day on the Bible app is Psalms 23:4. And I'm gonna read it for our viewers. Even if I walk through
Awesome.
a valley as dark as the grave, I will not be afraid of any danger because you are with me. Your rod and staff comfort me. How wild is it that you just said that on that gas mask? I just read it. That's crazy, man. God works in mysterious ways sometimes. It's pretty wild. Pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, very
Oh
cool.
man,
Very
how
cool.
cool.
I actually
So
just
cool.
opened it before we got on the air and wrote it in my journal right here. So yeah, that's pretty wild. But all right, so let's pick back up. So you got your verse, Psalm 91. It's in your kit while you're on deployment. How long was that deployment for you? Oh wow.
Oh, it was a
No
year.
kidding.
Um, yeah, it was a year. So train up was in Texas, really hot. Um, you're doing a lot of the cool thing about this is no matter what your job is, you learn how to be a medic, you learn how to be infantryman, you learn how to be all kinds of things. And so in Texas, lots of train up was might be doing MP stuff, we might be doing infantry stuff, even though I'm a
Yeah.
female, might be doing medic stuff. So I'm doing all of this training. We're training for rollover situations, or training for everything that came in handy because I was in an LMTV rollover incident. Not only was I participating in all this training and learning it, I was photographing it too. So that was really neat because I got to capture these moments for all of my battle buddies, from the saying goodbye to family to all the cool guy stuff that we were doing and learning. Um, we then went to Kuwait, had to spend some time there to acclimate. It was a hot like I have never felt before. The whole point is to acclimate, so you just lose pockets of time. It's so hot, you just sleep and sleep and sleep, and, I had never deployed before, so I was really scared. I was scared to fall asleep. They were really big about battle buddies. I'm just a rule person. So we start to splinter off. So my unit, when we were all in location, we were in 19 different locations
Wow.
across Iraq and Afghanistan and Kuwait. Um, So we all went together to Kuwait. Some of us went to Bagram. I then went on to Kandahar. Others then went on to these small remote fobs. So we splintered a little bit every time. So I was at Kandahar. We traveled for days. We got there. Oh well, when we were at Bagram, first in the country, you're used to the hot and the sand. I wasn't used to controlled deaths. So there were controlled detonations just right outside the gate, like, and
Yeah.
that was really scary to me. I just heard an explosion. I didn't know what it was, and other
No
people are
big
just
deal.
milling around like normal. And so
Yeah.
I'm learning about that.
I
Kandahar was
bet.
a whole different ballgame, though. I got there in the middle of the night. It's hot. People are yelling. Bullet holes are everywhere in this little like makeshift airport that we were in, and the unit receiving us came to pick us up, and it was just chaos. I'm sure every deployment is like this, but it just was chaos. And for a brand new soldier, I'm used to the order of basic training and AIT and my unit, and it's just chaos. So anyway, long story short is they had to pick us up in waves, and there was only room for four females, and there were five of us. So guess who had to stay behind? It was me. So, I went with the next round of males to be picked up from our
Hmm.
unit. Again, all strangers, but I'm just rolling with it until we drive, 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 drive. They just pull over. and they let me out, just me, and they say,
What?
"Wait here. Someone will be back for you soon." And so I remember writing about this, like, soon was such an interesting word because, what did that mean? So I look out and there's just darkness and just expanse of desert, and
Why did they
I
do
didn't know if
that?
I was safe. Uh,
Hazing?
I don't really know, but
Damn.
that's what happened. No, okay, well, looking back, the female tents and the male tents, like, our
Mhm.
housing areas were in different places, right? So, in their mind, we're gonna drop her off and somebody's gonna pick her up and take her to the right place. There was no communication about that. It just was like, I literally, like, tossed my duffel and my ruck and my stuff out, and they're like, "Wait here, somebody will be back for you." I'm looking around and it's dark, and I had to make a decision. So this was my first night there. I had to make a decision about fear, right? So I could succumb to fear and start my deployment off terrified and go through the rest of my year like that, or I could trust in my faith and trust in my training and trust in my ability and just drive on. And so I just prayed right there, and that's what I did. And that made the difference for the whole rest of the year for me because, man, I did a lot of traveling. I did a lot of things that I just needed to do. I needed to go and
Yeah.
see. I needed to see what was out there. Our base was attacked by rocket RPGs all the time. I started keeping a logbook of all the times we had rocket attacks and we had to like go to the bunker. First couple times you're just like scared, you put all your gear on, and after 41 days I stopped keeping that logbook because it happened so often, and eventually it was like, I'm not going to the bunker. If I'm going to die, I'm going to die
Yeah.
right here in my bed.
Yeah.
Cuz they were not
Yeah.
at like
Right.
noon, you know, it was like 2
Right.
in the morning, 4 in the morning. Uh we had a we had a truck explode at our gates. It rocked the whole base, damaged one of our dining facilities. I mean, there was a lot of stuff like
Yeah.
that that was very close, but I was never right there. Like, I was close enough for this to be scary. I was close enough to say, "I will not stay on this base. Like, I have to get out. I have
What
to go
type of
see
I don't
what's
know if
out
you can
there."
say, but what type of unit were you attached with? Okay.
I was in a signal unit, so their role was to set up, repair, maintain, communications around the battle space. So while we were there, we actually completed a fiber ring
Wow.
around the country of Afghanistan that started before us, but our unit kind of we were spread all around, and so we completed that,
Okay.
just to make more secure comms for everybody that
Nice.
was out in
Nice.
the battle space.
That's a long deployment, a
Yeah,
year. It's a long time.
it was a long time. But I got to travel. So initially, they didn't know
Right.
really what to do with a
Right.
photographer.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, come
Yeah.
on with us. What are we gonna
We're
do
gonna
with you?
drop you off in the middle of the night and you might
So
get picked up. It's
well, there was some shuffling to figure out, like,
yeah.
where's everybody
Right. I'm
going and whose
sure.
team am I on and all of that. So I ended up being in our headquarters element, assisting with just all of our training certifications. So when we were bringing our guys in from these remote FOBs, we would all bring them into this large base where I was, and then send them out to different schools. So I would make sure their training packets were all set. They had lodging, they had food, like everything was set to help
Mhm.
get them to where they needed to go and that they had all the paperwork and stuff. And then monthly, just making sure like all of our units have all the training and requirements that our battalion and brigade required of us. So I did that during the day. And in the evenings, I did photo
Oh, wow.
walks. So I just walked around the base with my camera and I took pictures
Yeah.
of everything I found exciting, interesting. I had conversations with all kinds of people. Because of that, I was supposed to travel with my commander to all of our FOBs to go check on our soldiers, and he ended up not really traveling. So I traveled a little bit to go to some different schools, and
Nice.
then I made friends with pilots, and then I started traveling every Sunday when I had a day off from
Cool.
my normal job. Your job is very, very long hours, very early into the morning, late at night. But we did have Sundays to just have as our day, like
Mhm.
sleep, laundry,
Yeah.
just decompress. It was a very tense environment over there. So, um, I made friends with pilots. I started flying every mission I could with them. I would take pictures, share pictures with them, and then I got to start going on missions with them, which nobody knew I was doing. But being up
Yeah.
in the air was so peaceful. You know, being on the ground, everything is emotions run high. It's dangerous. Our flag is at half staff every day. We have ramp ceremonies every day to get these guys from the battle space home. It was just depressing. It was heartbreaking. It was hot. It was scary. But being up in the air and hanging out of the side of a helicopter was just so peaceful and beautiful. And it's just, I don't
Awesome.
know, it's just what I
What's your
needed.
favorite airframe? What you get to ride in mostly? Blackhawks? Oh, yeah,
The
okay, okay.
Chinook is my favorite.
Nice. Okay.
It's my favorite.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
But I flew in all kinds of helicopters. I did a refueling mission with some Marines. They
Yeah,
would
nice.
fly flags for me, and,
There you go, right here.
they, I asked them, "Hey, can I" Yeah, 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 and they would
Yeah.
give me a certificate. They did so many that I said, "Hey, can I write a story about you guys? Would that be okay if I,
Mhm.
like, publish it?" I put all my stuff up on a media site, media would pick it up, and they said, "Yeah, why don't you come fly
Nice.
with us? Come fly with your flags." So the neat thing about that is, I just showed up. I didn't know where we were going or what we were doing. I showed up. It was a refueling mission. So these guys took this big C-130 and flew around the battle space. And then
Nice.
jets flew up
Yeah,
on both
yeah.
sides of us midair, and we refueled them. And they were so close
Wow.
that I'm looking at the peephole and I waved
That's
to the
awesome.
pilot and he
That's
waves
awesome.
back.
Yeah,
It was
that's
like the
awesome.
coolest moment of my whole life. Um, but what was really special about that is the flags, they hang them
Mhm.
from the rafters of the C-130, and then after a certain amount of time in the air, they take them down, and they have this whole ceremony that they do. They take them down, they fold them up, like, everything was very ceremonious and beautiful and full of respect and honor, and I'm so
Yeah.
glad that I got to go see that because that's one of those things. It's just like a little unknown thing, but
Mhm.
it's so important to them. Then I got
Yeah,
to
that's
see it and
amazing.
photograph it, so
And this is all in your first deployment? Wow. What,
yeah. Yep.
how was your son during this time? What kind of communication? Obviously, you're overseas. Did you have a whole lot of communication with your little boy while you were deployed?
I called home sometimes. We tried to Skype. He was pretty young and
Yeah.
not really interested, he was very wiggly. So
Yeah.
I would see him, but he
Yeah,
just wants
yeah.
to play or do something else. So I would write him letters and send him patches and send him little care packages, which
Nice, that's cool.
we still have some of that stuff. So but yeah, it was just keeping in touch when I could. I came home on R&R about halfway through. And that was tough because, I had been gone for 6 months, and so he was
Yeah.
used to his routine with dad, and so I was there trying to play with him and stuff, but I remember one time he was like, I don't know what we were doing, but it was something he didn't wanna do, and he's like, "I just want you to go back to Afghanistan." And I just my heart just broke. I tried to, like, hide the tears because he didn't really
Yeah.
know what he was saying, and he didn't really know what that meant, but it's
Man.
just like, oh, that was another moment
Okay.
where I was like, "What have I done? What have" like, how could I be doing the right thing,
Yeah.
yet it not be the right thing? But while I was there, I decided I'm gonna write a book for him because he's too young to know,
Mhm.
why I'm gone, but his heart will know this
Yeah.
distance always, right? So, I just took a bunch of photos and wrote a bunch of stories, and I ended up seeing a different side of the war than the media tells, and so that was the premise for the book. It's like the other side of the war. It was like, this is my purpose for going is to show this to the world that it is everything you think it is, but it's also this people are so kind. People have nothing and they will give you the nicest things that they have. We were there with 22 other countries and they brought and shared their culture with all of us. And so there were so many beautiful moments too that it was really important to me to capture and
Very
kind of
cool,
bring
that's
those stories
amazing.
back.
Well, what if we kinda shift into, how did you juggle you've been on deployment, you're going through a divorce. What did life look like when you got home? Do you wanna get into that at all? Yeah, I
Yeah, it
bet.
looked really hard. Okay, so we lost someone to suicide over there in Afghanistan. He wasn't in my
Okay.
unit, he was in my battalion. Soon as I got home, actually the day that we got home, everything was kind of shuffling, so I didn't know when I was gonna be home. So, my family spread all over. My
Wow.
brother was actually in
Nice.
Afghanistan, so I got to see him for a
Okay.
couple of
Yeah.
days,
Yeah.
a couple of hours. Um, and so anyway, I'm coming home. I'm making arrangements to get an apartment. It wasn't gonna be ready for 2 weeks, so now I'm figuring out who can I stay with for 2 weeks. I call my ex-husband and I say, "Okay, here's when our plane is gonna land," and he was like, "We're not gonna be there." He said, "I'm not, rewarding your decision." So there was a 30-minute window when our plane landed and your whole family's there and
Mhm.
everybody's there with signs and flags, and they're all dressed up, and they're so beautiful, and all these guys' spouses and kids, and not one person was there waiting for me.
Yeah.
So talk about heartbreak. So while they had 30 minutes, I went and got on the bus that everybody was gonna be loading onto, and I looked at my watch, and I had exactly 27 minutes to fall apart and 3 minutes to put myself back together. So I just wept, and I just let it all out. So I stayed with some friends for 2 weeks while I was waiting for my new apartment. Somebody that I had met in Afghanistan who, is my messenger, happened to be home on rotation right when I got home. I just called to check in, and he was able to say, "Okay, here's exactly what this process is gonna look like for you. You need to go to mediation, you
Yeah.
need to XYZ." I mean, talk about like a guide. It's like, "Okay, okay." So then all I had to do was focus on, "Okay, I've gotta do these steps in this order. This is how long this is gonna take, what this is gonna look like." You just get in mission
Yeah.
maybe you don't know. I had to get in a mission mindset, and there were so many times in my life that I had to do that. I didn't have time to be afraid. I didn't have time to be stressed. I didn't have the luxury of falling apart. Like I had something to do. Um, Within the next couple years, we lost 2 more people to suicide after we got home. And so that was really hard. That was especially hard because we didn't really lose anybody over there in my unit. We brought everybody home, and that's the place you expect to be losing
Right.
people, not when you get home. Being home was harder than I expected because I mean, when you're deployed, you're in the same uniform every day, you wearing the same thing, you're around the same people every day. You don't get to choose those things, and you don't have to like those people, but it's just a routine you get used to. And when you come home, there's like just so much chaos
Mhm.
and so much coming at you all the time. Like even people
Yeah.
cutting you off in
Yeah.
traffic, it's just so jarring. So I started to have a hard time. I started to have anxiety, panic attacks. I didn't know what they were. I didn't have words for these things. I just knew what it felt like. So I don't know, over the next couple of years, I started seeing a therapist. My insurance paid for like 4 visits. So I did that, and then I think I'm fine. And then I'm having anxiety attacks, and I'm running to the bathroom, or I'm running here. I've got to go fall apart and put myself back together. So I felt like on the outside, I looked fine, and on the inside, there was so much going on with me that was painful that I was trying to hide, and, like, it got to a point where I couldn't keep it in. But I also felt like self-medication was a luxury that I didn't have. So, I was co-parenting. I had my kid half the time. I had a professional career. Like, I couldn't tune out
Yeah.
with drugs or
Yeah.
alcohol. I had to be present. I had to wade through this, and so it got really scary about 2018 or 19. I didn't choose them, but I started having some suicidal ideations, and it was like you walk through your life feeling like a shell of yourself. That's the only way that I can describe it. I didn't feel like myself. I couldn't get back to myself. I couldn't get myself out of this funk, this very short fuse of anger, this very short fuse of anxiety, or I would cry if somebody looked at me the wrong way. I mean, I was a mess. I didn't feel comfortable being a mess. I didn't know what to do. Um, so I got really scared when I started having thoughts about, okay, how might I do this? And then I had done so much work on my faith that I knew that I needed to find a way to like trick God. Otherwise, I would have survived whatever it was. And so I just which that was even weird too. It all got really weird, and that's when I was like, I need to do something here. So I ended up finding a really amazing therapist, started some talk therapy, and I started hiking, like mega hiking. So we had done so much training and hiking and running and stuff over my deployments that I started hiking multi-miles. I started section
Nice.
hiking the Appalachian Trail, and time outside started to help me really
Mhm.
like sort myself out. I wore my rucksack, I wore my boots. I would go really long distances. I would push myself hard. So it was just a way for me to kind of test my mettle and sort myself out. I journaled along the
This is
way, so
all
that was part
after
of it.
after the army, or were you still in the
The rest,
army at this point?
I
Okay.
was
Okay.
I was out. So I
Okay.
got out in 2016. So I guess we should back up from
Okay.
2012 to 2016. I spent a year in Afghanistan. I spent a couple weeks
Okay.
in Korea, South Korea. I spent a couple weeks in Japan, and a couple weeks
Wow.
in Bulgaria and Romania.
Yeah.
So multiple deployments. Not all of them were combat
Yeah.
deployments,
Yeah.
but just lots of back and forth, right? Lots of back and forth. Too busy to be
Mhm.
realizing I don't feel right. There's always something to focus
Mhm.
on. There's always a mission to do. I liked the stress of it all. So it wasn't until years later that I started to not feel like myself. Probably there was some of that all along, right? But it just got loud enough that in
Mhm.
2019 it kind of came to a scary part for me. Um, I started seeing a really skilled therapist and we just started doing some really important work. We did some genealogy stuff.
Mhm.
We did all kinds of stuff. I started hiking. And then COVID hit and everybody was home for a couple of years, and that was a really interesting time in my life because I'm now working from home, and that gave me time and space to really dedicate
Yeah.
to sorting
Yeah.
myself out and healing. And if I needed to fall apart and I needed to have an anxiety attack or whatever, I was in the comfort of my own home to do that. I mean,
Mhm.
COVID brought its own stressors too, but it's like I didn't have to ignore it. I didn't have to drive on. I now had a safe space for myself to kind of work through this and work through this with my therapist. So if anybody's struggling, man, I would say time in nature is really
Mhm.
a good avenue. It'll
Yeah,
it'll
definitely.
heal some things. Therapy is a good avenue. It's hard to find a good therapist that is a good fit for you, but they're out there. That does a lot. Journaling, self-reflection, and just knowing that this stuff
Did you ever
time.
did you ever
Takes time.
belong to like kind of a I mean, like there's men's groups in churches for guys to kind of have a safe space, and I hate using that word, but you know what I mean, safe space. Did you ever find like a group outside of the hiking piece, maybe within a church or like a group of which obviously it's hard to find sometimes like-minded folks, especially as a veteran, but did you have a support system like that, like a group of individuals outside of therapy? Did you ever consider that, or was that a option for you? Okay.
It was,
Nice.
yeah, so I joined a
Okay.
women's group, a small women's
Yeah.
group, a
Nice.
women's small group at church, and that was really interesting too because some of the studies that we were doing, had things that had references to
Mhm.
being in the desert, being, I mean, going to
Right.
Afghanistan was like
Right.
stepping into the Old Testament, but so now, I've now gone, back to
Okay.
school at a Christian college, so
Nice.
I've now read the whole Bible. I'm in a women's group. We're deep diving in some of these scriptures that are speaking directly to a part of me that, is very specific and was very difficult that nobody else could relate to. Like, nobody else was a veteran. They couldn't
Mhm.
understand this part of my life, but that was a method where God was, like, really kind of delivering messages directly to me. I also became a small group leader of girls group, so I was with them from 7th to ninth grade, and just trying to pour into them, also learning a lot along the way. Like I needed to be in church, but these girls were there because their parents wanted them to be there, right? So like we didn't have the same feeling about this. So I just learned that it's just really
Mhm.
about showing up for them. Like, things don't have to go perfect, they don't have to do the homework we've asked them to do, but I need to keep showing up for them because that's what they're looking for, that's what they're needing in their lives. They're needing a strong female role model, and even if I was falling apart, what I could
Right.
do was show up for them. And like that reverberated into my life too, is that when I was having a hard time, it's like I have
Mhm.
to keep showing up for myself. Nobody is going to fix me. I have to fix me. What can I read? What can I do? What retreat can I go on? Pretty quickly, I got burned out with veterans because there's a lot of brokenness, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of just a lot of heaviness, and I was trying to move on and put my mindset in a better position, and so I got burned out on veterans and veteran programs for a little while, so I was a little bit lost, right? Like, I didn't quite fit over here anymore with veterans, I didn't quite fit over here with church, and then there was some things happening in church that, weren't I didn't like, I didn't quite connect with everybody at work because I'm a single mom, I'm a soldier, I'm having a hard time with stuff that they can't understand. So as much as I was social and connected to people, I felt very alone, and alone is a
Yeah.
really hard
Very
place
hard place to
to
be.
be.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of veterans feel that way when you kinda try to find, purpose or you just feel like you can't relate to people. And not just veterans, I think a lot of people that have been through trials, they kinda feel like they're on an island sometimes. And that's not a good place to be for sure. Mhm.
Recognizing it is really important though.
Mhm.
Recognizing that you feel like that. When you start to think about this stuff, when you start to process this, when you start to get curious about this, it's easy to be angry. Um, and it's just because we're storing so much energy in our body. Everything that we've been through, it's not just up here. We're storing all that in our body. And so it just surges through your body. So it's easy to be angry. But what we need to do is be curious about this. Like, what am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling this? Is this even related? What role do I play in this? What can I learn from this? When you start to be curious,
Mhm.
it starts to tone it down for you. It starts to make things make sense, and it starts to guide you into maybe places of healing and modalities that you never would have thought of. So I would say we all are like that, but when you can start to recognize I don't feel right or I feel
Mhm.
lonely or I feel alone, get curious about those feelings and where
It's
they're
good
coming
advice.
from and
Yeah.
why.
And it sounds like you've been really self-aware your whole life. Some people struggle with that. But
I mean, I
even
had to learn.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
had to learn because
Right, right.
through
But
hard things, you know?
but even when you
It
said that
doesn't
you
just
didn't have
come.
time to numb with, drugs and alcohol because you had to be present, and I think even just that alone, that statement, there's still parents that, still self-sabotage for lack of better words because they just can't deal with things, but, it sounds like you've been pretty self-aware from my end of it, hearing you talk, and I think that's a crucial thing, and so like you just said, you can feel this stuff, but you need to do something with it and not just numb it or ignore it. I mean, you gotta process it.
Yeah, and I just have addiction in my family, so I was always afraid of that being my story. So I don't you know, judge anybody who has these coping mechanisms. It just I got lucky that I was afraid of that, right? So then I didn't have multiple problems to deal with. So there are ways out of all of these things. There are ways back to you. Um, but it's hard but the work is worth it. And so I want to fast forward just a little bit to I don't know, a year and a half ago. I was dating another veteran. We'd been dating for 3.5 years at this point. Um, and everything was fine. He was wonderful. We, 2.5 years in, started sharing a home, had a little sweet little blended family, and he just was not managing stress well. He was self-medicating and hiding it and lying about it and making me feel like something was wrong with me for being suspicious, or it was just traits that I didn't understand. I didn't understand why this was a different side of this person or what was really going on. And, I had my own mental health struggles before these were different. So it's just like I didn't quite have, again, I didn't have a language for this. I didn't have an understanding. I just felt like something wasn't right. So we were having some pretty difficult conversations. I would say most of our relationship was wonderful. We were great teammates. But one day he just was all day while I was at work texting and just irate and just in a bad mood and taking it out on me. And it didn't make any sense to me. So I said, I'm busy. We'll talk about this when I get home. And he called me and he said, I don't want to talk about anything. And I said, okay, okay, fine. Like, okay, I'll be home in a little bit. When I came home, um, the fire alarm, all the fire alarms in the house were going off. Garage door was slightly open. I walked in, the house smelled like exhaust fumes because he had sat in the garage with his truck running, trying to suffocate himself from exhaust fumes until his truck ran out of gas. So by the time I got home, fire alarms are ripped off the ceilings. He's laying down incoherent. So I'm very alarmed. That's what I felt. So I'm trying to shake him awake, like ask him what's happening. He's kind of in a daze. I'm running around the house, opening all the windows to get the smell out. Again, I don't know what's happening. So he's stumbling around the house, wanting to argue. And I don't have time for this. I'm busy. I don't want to engage if he's not in the right headspace. So I go into a room to open a window right next to me, about 3 feet away from me. He pulls a pistol out of a table and he shoots himself in the head right next to me. So I remember seeing this out of the corner of my eye, just seeing him fall. And I just turned and I ran outside and I called 911 immediately. Somehow he survived. Um, I don't know how. It was a miracle. It was a miracle because it went through his chin, all the way up through and out. I could hear him moaning and saying, "I'm okay, I'm okay." Like, I could hear him through the open window. I just stayed outside. Neighbors came over, fire department, EMS, everybody came over. There were like 20 people in and out of my house asking me the same questions over and over. And I was so in shock, but I had responsibilities, right? So this is like such a weird thing is I called my brother and said, "Hi, I'm not going to be at the 5K this weekend because this is what just happened." And I called my boss, "Hi, I need to take the day off of work tomorrow because this is what just happened." And I called my therapist and I said, "I just had a big T trauma. I
Yeah.
need to see you like immediately. And this is what happened." And I just kept it brief and I'm sobbing, right? And so they're like, all of them are like, "What?" My, neighbor my neighbors were wonderful. She said, I'm getting you a hotel tonight. You go get a hotel." My son was with me that night, but not yet. He was luckily at a music event till 9 o'clock. So all of this happened. I go pick him up. I called one of my girlfriends and said, "I need you to tell me what to say." And like, what do I need to say? What do I need to do? How do I get through this night with Carter? And so she kind of talked me through that. We were up and out the next morning off to his special music event. And gosh, my neighbors cleaned everything up. They cut out my carpet. They threw away my curtains. They painted the wall. They did all of this like overnight so that I wouldn't have to come back to see any of this. So it was weeks and months of sorting out, putting my
Right.
home back together. Um, but his family, I called them immediately. They came and he was in ICU for 32 days. And so quickly it became there can only be one person. You can come at 8 a.m. to go to his bed. There's no
Right.
rooms in
Right.
the ICU. You're in a bed. When the doctors come to your bed, your like family can come in and talk to the doctors. So I became the one person. That's the last
Yeah.
thing I wanted to do. I was so angry and hurt and scared and but to see his family falling apart and them look to me for strength, it's like here I am in another situation where I've got to be strong for somebody else. I've got to put all this aside and I've got to take care of them. And I did. And they became people I had to take care of. And so I said, "I'm sorry, you have to go home. I
Mhm.
can't host you anymore." I was in so much shock that I didn't know what to do except to go to the hospital every day because this person was a veteran, right?
Yeah.
So, and this was a miracle. So I didn't feel like I just felt so lost. I just felt I have to see this through. I have to at least make
Right.
sure he's okay. So after 2 weeks, we're trying to get him moved to another place, inpatient places elsewhere, and this was 2 weeks of dead ends. It was very frustrating. It was very scary. But then they said, "Okay, well, he's coming home," and I said, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa! No, he
Yeah.
can't come home. I
Yeah.
can't take care of him." And so that night that he was supposed to be released and coming home, I just happened to be there when he started coughing up blood and his jaw was wired shut so that it would heal. So he was now choking. They call the doctor to unwire his jaw. He spits up clots of blood like golf ball size. I was there for all of that. So gosh, talk
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
being traumatized, right? But I had done so much work on my own healing journey before this that it's like, okay, I don't know how I'm going to get through this, but I'm going to get through it with God taking care of me like the same way. And back to my darkest days, right, where I said I
Yeah.
felt like I
Yeah.
needed to trick God. This was a very clear picture of me, a very clear picture to me, like, you were right, right? Like, how
Yeah.
could anybody survive this? And he did. So, man, if that wasn't a
Yeah.
sign for me, this was. So it was a very confusing time. My dog was in the house when all of this happened. So days later, he swells up. We take him to the vet. He has lymphoma everywhere now. 6 weeks
Man.
later, we had to put him down. So about 4 weeks into all this, 32 days later, he does
Mhm.
come home. Home is here
Yeah.
because there's nowhere else for him to go. He has a feeding tube. He had 14 different medications we had to manage. They all had very specific times. So I had a basket full of his meds, notes written on all of them, a notebook to track when I'm giving him all these meds, crushing them up, giving it to him through his feeding tube. He had eyeball hanging out of his head. I mean, it was terrible. And it was just these days were like,
Yeah.
how is this happening to
Yeah.
me? How is this happening to me? How am I going to get through? And I had great conversations with friends. I had great conversations with therapists. I had great conversations with child life specialists at the hospital. So just like leaning into anybody who could be a mentor, even my neighbor, I asked her to text me,
Mm.
just remind me to take a
Yeah.
shower. Tell me to do the dishes today. So it's like I couldn't have done that without this village of people that came around and they were all strangers before that, right? And so it just took a lot of man, there was so much agility and pivoting and pain and confusion. And I just kept taking one more step, one more step, one more step. And I had no idea where this was going to go, but how this was going to go. I was very scared. Um, and about a month after he came home, he was up and walking around and doing better. And so I went to go get my son for the weekend. While I was gone for that 30 minutes, he had gotten in his truck, went down the street, found a liquor store, got some alcohol, drank it, and came back and was stumbling drunk when I got home. I could smell it, I could see it.
Yeah.
Here we go again, right? This is even more scary. So now he's on all these meds. And so I sent my son over to the neighbor's house. I went over to the neighbor's house. We stayed there for the whole weekend. I called his family and I said, this is dangerous for me now. This is dangerous for me now because of the decisions that he's making. And
Yeah.
I already couldn't
Yeah.
do this. This was
Right.
heavy, but like I didn't have a choice. So I said, you need to come get him immediately or
Wow.
I'm getting a restraining order. And they came the next day. It took all weekend to sort all of this out, but we stayed away. We gave him time and space. He's been with his family now ever since. It's the right place for him to
Mhm.
be, right? He needed to be with family, he needed to be in another location other than where this happened. He needed to have his own mental health
Right.
journey while I had mine. I had to be able to separate myself from this completely
Yeah.
to be able
Yeah.
to heal. Um, but along the way, so I hope that's not anybody else's story. But the part that is probably relatable to most is that, I took 6 weeks off of work to kind of sort this out and get through this and figure out what I needed to do to be healthy. And I'm very grateful that I was able to do that. Part of my therapy was
Okay.
to go to Al-Anon, which
Mhm.
is like the
Yep.
sister to AA. AA and NA is if you yourself have an issue with alcohol or narcotics. Al-Anon is for those who are impacted by that. So, because his decisions and his relationship with alcohol and the hiding and all of that, and that led to this incident, I went to Al-Anon. It's a support group. You sit in a circle, you share stories, and I'm just a very adventurous, lively, happy person, and I was just quiet and still and soaking it in, and it's like I needed to hear other people's stories to make me feel like I wasn't alone in this thing that I didn't
Right.
choose to happen to me. So after going a couple of times, people were starting to get like a little suspicious. Like, you look dressed up every time you come. Like, you look too nice. Like, what could possibly be
Mhm.
wrong with you? Why are you here? And so I just I told the story that I just told you. I came home, house was filled with exhaust, gunshot right next to me in my home, caregiver, not my choice. Uh, so here I am trying to figure out how to get through this. And it's easy for all of us to try to make sense of our trauma, our hardship by comparing it to other people's problems. At least it's not that bad, or you
Yeah.
think you've
Yeah.
been through some hard stuff. So it's distracting to do that. It distracts you from the healing that you need to do. Um, but it was helpful for me to hear other people's stories. At times, it was not helpful for me to hear other people's stories because I was like, I don't feel like I fit here. So I've done all kinds of modalities of treatment since
You're
then.
you're
We can
very
talk about
you're
those if
very
you want,
strong,
but
and I admire your resilience because that is a lot. I mean, that I can't imagine, and not to mention you're still being a
yeah,
mom while going through all of this. I mean, I hope
yeah.
that I admire you. I hope you give yourself enough credit through that because that is a lot. That is a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I think about it like that, but I being a mom has always been very
Hmm.
important to me. When I have my son, it is like there's no distractions. We are like
Yeah.
about our
Right.
time. We're building
Right.
forts, we're rock climbing, we're building stuff. Now he's a teenager, so now we're like rock climbing,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I'll stop here
Yeah.
a third of the way up the wall. We're snowboarding.
Yeah.
I'll be on the bunny hill. But it's just so we've had really good
Hmm.
conversations, right? Just as he's gotten
Yeah.
older, just about life. I
Right.
don't have him all the time. That makes the time
Hmm.
with him really important and impactful throughout this time. I leaned heavily on
Hmm.
how do I get through this with a kiddo? I can't keep this from him. I can't
Yeah.
lie to him, but like, what do I say? So we started with a series of conversations about mental health and depression and anxiety and social media. And are they talking about this at school? Are his friends experiencing this? And we talked about how to recognize if you're feeling like that, or how to support somebody who is if he hears that in his friend group. And then as it got closer to, okay, this person isn't going to be in the hospital anymore, they're going to be coming home, then I said, I know he's in the hospital, I know he's injured, I'm going to tell you why. And I did, and he just didn't Carter, my son, didn't say anything, and I said, "Do you have any questions? If you have any questions or have anything to say, like, I'm here for whatever
Hmm.
you need to talk about." And he said, "No, I don't have any questions." And I said, "Not one? Not one? You don't have anything to say after that?" And he said, "Well, that's shocking." And so I said, "Yeah, okay, okay. That is a completely
Mhm.
appropriate response to this." And so I
Yeah.
just needed to
Yeah.
give him space to process that and invite him to conversate with me about it. And so we chat about these kinds of things. I didn't ever go into all the details of all of this, but it's just like, this is not a way that you want to teach your kids lessons in resilience and strength and agility, but it's like the way that I handle this and get through this is going to teach him about life. And I have to be really careful. I have to make sure I'm taking care of myself. This is not a
Mhm.
time where I can fall apart,
Right.
even though I was falling apart, right? You fall apart and you find
Right.
ways to put yourself back together. But it's like I kept taking steps forward. Um, and I still have days where there is a depression looming, and now at least I
Right.
know what that
Right.
is. It's I was describing this to someone one time, this heaviness that I wake up with, and they had been through a house fire, and they said, "Oh, yeah, that's depression." And I said, "Oh, is that what that is?" So, some things that should be so obvious to all of us, when you're actually experiencing them, they're different. They feel different, they look different. You expect things to be a certain way, and when you encounter them differently, it's kinda confusing, and I think that's one of the barriers to us all as humans, like, figuring out we need help and figuring out what kind of help we need is because we don't even really know what's going on, and not to mention all the times people had said to me, doctors had said to me, you're fine, there's nothing wrong with you, you're fine," because I have all my limbs, I'm not burned, but I was not fine. I was left alone in the middle of a war zone. I went through multiple rocket attacks. We had an
Mhm.
LNTV rollover. We had suicides. I mean, there was a lot that I went through. That was out of my control.
What do you do, I know we kinda talked about this in the beginning, but, like, what are you kinda doing right now? You mentioned getting out in nature, journaling, or is there anything that, like, if
Yeah.
someone's listening to this right now or watching this, is there any piece of advice you would have for someone who's maybe on the edge of giving up right now, that just feels like it's just too much to bear, they can't deal with it? Do you have any advice for them?
Yeah. Everybody's going to be in a different place. And so I will say some things that worked for me were getting outside in nature, take your feet off, like literally ground yourself to the earth. Start taking some deep breaths because you're calming your nervous system. So these things come in waves, these thoughts, these feelings. So what you can do is take a couple of deep breaths. Put yourself in a total different room or change your scenery to just calm yourself down for a minute, get yourself back in the game. A lot of people go to their doctor and get put on a lot of meds, and those meds all have side effects, and you get different meds from that. So I will say, if that is you, really start researching those meds and try to minimize that. Try to work with your doctor to get some other modalities of treatment because the meds are great, right? But they don't
Right.
solve the root cause. The things that solve the root cause are you moving your body and getting this out of your body. So, journaling was something I did, deep breathing, hiking. I did a Tony Robbins style event, and we
Nice.
did fire walking. I did an outward bound hiking and rock climbing trip, which they have free trips for veterans. Um, I did a lot of reading, so I would
Mm,
just say don't
good
stay in your
advice.
head. Talk to people, talk to the page, get yourself outside, try to find a therapist. Things that I did with my therapist that were really helpful. You're gonna have to ask them if they know these modalities of treatment, but we did some work with Enneagram, which is like a personality study. That was a really helpful thing to do in therapy because we were able to tailor our discussions and our work based on my Enneagram number, which is 7. We did a thing called internal family systems. So that is a specific kind of modality where you are made up of different parts, and those different parts have different personalities and different jobs and different roles to play. And so you kind of sort out what parts are there. I have an anxious part, I have a depressed part, I have an angry part, I have a creative part. So you
Mhm.
start to kind of figure out what's at play here, who's taking over. And when you're able to see yourself kind of through its kaleidoscope lens
Yeah.
instead of I'm one broken piece
Yeah.
or I'm one bruise, it starts to make things make sense and you get to start moving through. So internal family systems, EMDR, any kind of healing retreat. We did a genealogy project to see where things might be passed
Mhm.
down to me through generations, that maybe I'm having anxiety attacks or depression because I have this in my family. I have a lot of alcoholism in my family, right? That's why I was like, I'm never doing that. I'm never doing meds. And after a lot of modalities of treatment, then I did get on a very low dosage of an antidepressant, and I'll say
Mhm.
that that has helped. But it's something I came to as a last resort, not as a first resort. And I think because I've done all this work ahead of time
Mhm.
over
Right.
years, the work is never done, right? We should always be evolving. We should always be learning. And when you are hurting and when you are traumatized, you feel
Mhm.
stunted and you feel stuck. But even flowers grow through the cracks in the sidewalk. So, I mean, that can be true for all of us. And we're never done learning and we're never done growing. And so I'm constantly reading, I'm constantly finding nonprofits to get involved with to serve others. I'm now telling my story for the first time. This is something I've never really done before because there's a shame attached to all of this. Even
Right.
though this, I didn't choose this. There's a shame about, I don't want people to think differently of me if they know this about me. I don't
So
want them to
I
think
want to
I'm
hit on that. I
broken.
want to hit on that real quick. You mentioned
But I'm not
shame. So I want to tie this in because I
sure.
I've been the same way as far as the shame piece. And I'm going to add this. You hit on spiritual warfare earlier. And I think as believers, Satan wants us to stay
Yeah.
quiet, right? Because if you don't share your story, you've shown through this whole conversation how God has carried you ultimately through all of you've been through hell. I mean, I don't know how else to put it, but you've shown that through all of this,
Yeah.
God has been there for you. I mean, you were in Afghanistan, you come home, and what you went through, what you just described at home, from what I heard, was more traumatic than anything you saw or witnessed in Afghanistan. But what I want to tell people that are listening that might have a story and they're afraid to share it or they feel like they're going to be judged, the enemy doesn't want you to talk. He wants you to stay quiet because if you stay quiet, you can't help anybody. And we mentioned this earlier. If you're alone, you're going to start getting in your own head. You're going to think down on yourself. You don't want to share your story. You're not going to feel worthy of love or worthy of Jesus. But if you can share that story, you never know who you're going to impact. And for anyone, whether they're a veteran or a parent or whatever walk of life you're coming from. So just it took me years to understand that concept, but I just want people to hear that right now that are watching and listening. If you have a story, it's not easy to share. And for me too, like I'm hosting tonight, but when I'm on the other side of this thing, it's still not easy to talk about my story. I'm no angel. I have a past, but I think ultimately as Christians, we need to be on offense and share our story because we can help people that way. And that is the best way to take the enemy head on.
Yeah. Yeah. There's been a lot of spiritual warfare at play in my life. You know, recognizing it's I think the more work you do, the more important you become, right? Like you become to opposition because you're really doing God's work at this point. So that's part of this story too. It's like, okay, I recognize this and I'm tired and you're a worthy adversary, but
Yeah.
like so am I. You just trudge on. Um, you just have to keep your head in the game. The goal is to make you feel alone. It is, and you're just not. None of us are born broken, right? We're not born this way. We're not born with trauma, with illness, with these things happen to us because of things out of our control. And what we get to do is lean on each other, find community, build a tribe, learn from this, help others because of it. I wish this was not my story, but there's so many beautiful moments that have come from it that I take those
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
Those are more
definitely,
important, you know?
definitely. And I'm very thankful, Nicole, that you had the courage to come on and share your story, because this podcast and platform is really men's mental health awareness and spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ. But there are a lot of women that watch this show to kind of understand why their husband or their boyfriend or whatever does certain things. And I think it's great to get your perspective, because it might help someone that maybe wouldn't be part of the normal target audience, and it's good for men too to hear it. But I think ultimately, I really appreciate you having the courage to share, because I mean, you might impact someone that neither one of us saw coming, from this episode.
Yeah, and I think one interesting point of view, I guess, is, I'm a woman veteran,
Hmm.
which is kind of unusual, right? If you're supporting somebody that's a veteran, you're supporting somebody that's going through a hard time, it's really important for you to evaluate like what's safe for you. Um, People only change when they want to change and when they're ready to change, and sometimes they're just not. So sometimes the safest thing that you can do is give them some literal space and distance. Um, yeah, you just really have to be, of course, love your partner and your family member and everybody and help them through. But this is a journey that they're going to have to walk. You're not going to be able to fix it for them. And sometimes the safest thing that you can do for you is to just like give yourself some distance and get about the
It's good
healing that you
advice.
need to
You
do.
have to put yourself first in order to heal. You have to make that decision, and it's not always easy, but you've just got to have the courage to do it. Well, as we're kind of wrapping up, what does life look like for you now? You mentioned you were involved in some organizations with veterans. Are you writing a book? Do you have a book that you're putting out? Can you kind of tell us about that?
Yeah,
Nice.
I'm flirting with the idea. So I have an idea for a
Nice.
photography book. I've taken thousands of photos on my deployments. So I fell in love with Choose Your Own
Yeah.
Adventure kid books as a kid. So I want to do a large, coffee
Yeah.
table photography book with the story of that particular photo. So why did I take this? What are you looking at here? And then the bottom of each page, like there's a choice for what you want to see next because there isn't just a cohesive narrative to it, but there's themes. And so this way,
Nice.
I can take you around the
Yeah.
world through my deployments, through my experiences. So you kind of, as the reader, can have a different experience every time. So I'm working on that. Had an opportunity to
Nice.
work with some veterans at a
Okay.
place called Creative Vets. So
Nice.
I'm talking with them. They're opening a brand new space here in Nashville later next year. So we're talking about how what does me teaching photography look like, and so um, I'm doing a lot of thought about how do we craft a photograph that encompasses their story. Not how do
Yeah.
we teach them how to use a camera, but like how do we design a photograph that tells their story? How do they tell stories through their photos? So I'll be working with Creative Vets. So if you're in the Nashville area, please look that up and come join us. There's all kinds of artistic outlets for you there and professionals that help you write songs,
Nice.
write plays,
That's really
I'll
cool.
help you make
Yeah.
photographs. And on a personal front, we're
Oh,
doing
okay.
college visits with my kiddo. So we got our eyes
Wow.
on Washington for the Christmas holidays. So we're
Wow.
going to
There
go
you go.
play in the snow, see some
There you go.
colleges, and
Make sure
hike
you
some
take
big
lots of
mountains.
pictures. That's awesome. We don't
I
have any snow in
will.
Tennessee. It was gorgeous today. It was about 70 degrees and sunny. But because
Yeah.
we're Nicole and I are in the same area, so we're
Yeah.
both Tennesseans. So a lot of the guests on this show are on the West
Yeah.
Coast or up north. So I don't have a lot of Tennessee natives on here. So it's cool to talk to a fellow Tennessean. It's pretty cool. Well, like I said,
Well, I do
yeah,
love the mountains in the
yeah,
west and
yeah.
the snow in the north,
There
so
you
I'm
go. It's
headed up to
awesome.
your area.
Well, I'm so grateful that you took the time to come on tonight and to have the courage to share your story. And for everyone listening and everyone watching, if you know someone that might be impacted by this story, please share it. Please like and subscribe to the channel and help us continue to spread awareness for mental health and the importance of it, and also to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ. Nicole, thank you so much for coming on tonight.
My pleasure.
Going forward in your projects, keep us posted so we can kind of update people on where you are and if they want to get involved in the organizations that you mentioned, so we can add those to the notes and people can learn more. Especially if you write a book, let us know so I can put it out there for you. All right.
I will. Yes, I will
Nice.
do a show and tell. So now I have an
That's right.
accountability
That's
partner,
right.
all of you,
That's
right? Now I
right.
have
That's
to
true.
do
You got to
this.
do it now. You said it. Awesome. Yeah. Well,
I
thank you
know
again
it.
for coming on. I really appreciate it.